It is limitation there in the park.
Yeah.
Much rent.
Not much at all.
Still stuff.
We're on.
Not at all.
I suppose they could, expand
We're live.
to the north.
FYI.
A lot of earth moving.
Yeah, take a lot. The city doesn't want to deal with it much, and, they're just not, they're kind of, almost like the redheaded stepchild. Nobody really wants to deal with them. So, but there's potential. So, but
Yeah, they need a sponsor.
the proximity to Cooperstown helps, but it's not quite as close as you would want it to be. It just, yeah.
And it's probably Seagull County's only public use airport.
Yep.
Hamilton's, public use airport has.
Yeah.
But Hamilton's got a lot more activity because of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, with Suco, the State College, you don't quite get that level of clientele that you would get with people, obviously COVID, you get more, more people probably that fly.
Yeah.
So,
Trustees and prerequisite to be a trustee of COVID. Millionaire.
yeah, believe it.
We are live.
Okay, well, I'll call the meeting over. First order of minutes, approve the minutes of the March 28th, 8:30 meeting. Move approval. Moved and seconded. Any errors, corrections, omissions, deletions? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Review the financials, June 2024.
Your first handout is the revenue, the in-house revenue appropriation. You might skip over that and even the next page, which was the QuickBooks, and move to the balance sheet first. In summary, our cash holdings, including money market, checking, and payroll, we have total cash holdings of $1,040,389. Deferred outflows of $70,272. Fixed assets, including land, building and improvements, machinery and equipment, furniture and equipment, less accumulated depreciation. Total fixed assets of $286,663, giving us total assets of $1,256,780. Liability side, we've got a small amount of accounts payable. We've got total current liabilities of $9,471. Pension liability of $806, giving us total liabilities of $10,277. And then equity, including our unrestricted fund balance, designated building maintenance fund, investments in capital assets, retained earnings, and net income gives us total equity of $1,246,503. 1,246. Oh, I'm sorry.
Total liability.
Total liabilities plus equity equal our assets.
Oh,
Good. Any questions on the balance sheet? If not, we'll pull back a couple of pages, the revenue appropriation analysis. We've got one application for the year from 99 Albany Street. Got a small amount of interest income coming in, our rental of real property, and grants from local governments. Gives us total income. That number's off, Amanda. Okay, just because this is the end of May that we're looking at, I'm sorry, not the end of June. We've got total income of $100,112. We've got expenses, including wages of $71,152, expenses of $38,515, and then employee benefits of $35,101, giving us total expenses of $144,770 and a total net income of negative $44,658. Sorry, I didn't include the end of June financials. On the upside, we have made the transfer from the CRC for Economic Development Services, and we received our second check from Madison County. So we are actually in the black. We'll have updated numbers for you in September.
Is that the very 2020?
That's half of it. If you turn to the in-house, Russ, the Madison County total commitment to the IDA and economic development efforts is 185,680. So yes. The one-on-one 142 is the CRC contracted account.
The May must have gotten shuffled in instead of the June month.
I can pass around the June financials for anybody who would like to see them, and we'll make it a point to email those out to you. If anyone has any questions, just let me know. Essentially, we're in fine financial shape. Any questions on the financials as presented? Thank you.
We need to accept that. Motion to approve the financial report.
Which would be January through the end of May 2024.
Yeah. Dave Rogers, second.
I'll say it.
Sullivan. Any further discussion? Now, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Move on to the executive director's report.
Executive director's report.
Our first order of business is Albany Street Holdings. We have an application in on the project 99 Albany Street. Amanda's going to pass around an application. Essentially, they've gotten their construction numbers in, and their total project costs have increased from $13.6 million to $15.6 million. So a fairly substantial increase, and they want to make sure that the benefits that have been approved by the agency previously can be adjusted upwards based on the additional costs. So additional sales tax and mortgage recording tax. Mortgage recording tax will go from approximately a $70,000 benefit to $100,000. Sales tax anticipated to go from $495,000 to $560,000 in round numbers. And maybe the last item on that, Amanda, there's an associated resolution.
Yes.
They also were including their retail job numbers as part of their project, when really that'll be a third party. They will have 3 full-time employees at the facility, and they estimate 27 retail jobs, assuming it's a restaurant that will occupy that space on the ground floor. Chris Rowe. He knows it.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is because the new financial systems in the aggregate doesn't total more than $100,000, we don't even need public hearing. So this would just be amending the original approving resolution that was previously adopted. We don't have this one ready to close.
And I'll remind everyone that we do have a letter on file. The mayor, the town supervisor, and the county are very much in favor. This is the Napa Auto Store, and the other lots that are roughly, at one time were contaminated properties, and they're probably one of the only eyesores in downtown Casanova. This is really part of their redevelopment of downtown. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on their application, but the resolution that's before you is a approval of a modifying resolution for the benefits requested.
Resolution is well underway.
I understand. Haven't been down to see it, but
Why did it go up so much?
I think inflation, costs of construction costs and material costs. Yeah. Yeah, that's
I think it's just materials, not because that just seems like a lot for material.
I think it's material and construction costs.
There'll probably be another 10% when they get it done. Yeah, it's crazy.
So, I'm sorry, tell me again what the benefits of the.
If you look on the second page of your resolution at the bottom,
Last whereas paragraph.
the last whereas. Total project cost went from 13.6 to 15.6, approximately a 15% increase. Mortgage reporting tax will go from 70,000 to 100,000, and sales tax abatement from 495,560.
And that's all reflected in this application.
Yes,
That's been handed out.
So that 495 to 560 is over a 10-year period?
that's the sales tax benefits. They will capture that in the first couple of years.
Is there a pilot that goes with this?
A pilot is also, but they're not anticipating that their estimates on the value of their property, therefore their tax will be impacted. We're only being asked to consider the modification of the two other benefits.
So the pilot, are these the pilots on page?
Yes, the cost benefit, page number 5.
So it's 50% first 5 years?
Years 1 through 5, and a 10% step up. They'll only get a 40% benefit in year 6, 30% in year 7, till year 10, and they'll get 100% of the tax rates.
What page do you want?
CB5 should be right towards the end.
Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 pages. There's a page coming in.
Okay, and with GPI. Okay, so right down,
That title page, A2, apparently, a concerned citizen filed a, request to SHPO for historic review.
Okay,
But I don't know if that is, that doesn't, I mean, they've already started the site construction. There's a house that they have purchased behind the 2 industrial sites.
okay.
And apparently the review is for that property, which is not yet been
Okay.
demolished, but
We don't know if that will have any impact on this.
no, SHPO will write it. It's not in a historic, designated historic. So they'll just have to wait to get the SHPO letter of determination.
Okay.
I just thought I'd give you a heads up.
We'll see if we can get a copy of that letter for our files.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the resolution?
I'll move it.
I'll second. Moved by Liz Moran, second by Steve Gerke. Any further discussion?
So I still have some qualms about, you know, assisted market rate housing with no benefit for low and moderate workforce housing and so on. Apparently, we don't have anything in that. We could read to it.
Well, it was previously approved.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
I'm not against it, I just have some qualms about it.
You're saying you were more interested in what, more low income housing?
Yeah, I'd like us to see us support. I have no problem with supporting lower income housing. This isn't necessarily high income housing, but, certainly is a need for it, Russ. Yeah, well, you know, my major interest here would be the terrible site that they're on.
Because it's a redevelopment, it's not something.
It's something that if you don't have money, that site is never going to be developed. And so certainly interested in getting rid of that area there.
Except for the auto garage and the Napa store, nothing's happened in at least my 20 years, nearly 20 years back.
I know. Yeah, I'm surprised it's not a brownfield.
It was investigated as a brownfield.
Yeah.
Site.
There may be some
Yeah.
remediation.
Yeah.
But I think the fact of the matter is, and the mayor has expressed this to me, and I've talked a lot with Lauren Lyons from CAPCO about it, and their comment is, this has been an eyesore, and we,
I
you know,
understand that, yeah.
they were able to secure money through the Restore New York program that came to the village, nearly $2 million helping out the right costs.
Good story.
And based on the cost increases, they've also gone back to ESB. They have not received any additional awards, but they have requested it. Obviously, it's a difficult project as far as the capital stack to get done.
Yeah.
But for the incentives, the project would happen.
There's a strong argument for that. And, you know, I think Governor Hochul has been, you know, banging the drum, and maybe Chris has got an update for us during that, if he's got an Albany update, but the one thing that they keep talking about again and again and again, not only market rate and LMI type housing, but all types of housing throughout the state. They say Central New York alone needs 2,500 units every year for the next decade to keep up with what they anticipate as far as current housing and the future influx of workforce housing.
And downtown housing is very useful for everything.
Mine is more is how they can cash flow, because how many units was it? Was it
30 units?
30 units? Yeah. and it's- I'll pay a lot of rent. Any further discussion? Not, roll call?
Laura?
Yes.
Solka?
Aye.
Rogers?
Aye.
Durfee? Aye. Moran? Barnabas? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, the next request, Amanda's going to pass out a application. As many of you probably know, Good Nature Brewing Company has been acquired by a private equity firm out of Colorado. They specialize in distressed properties, and the new ownership has reached out asking for a continuation of the pilot agreement that was enjoyed by Good Nature Brewing Company under the new ownership. Liz and I had emailed, she had a few questions, and a point that I think is worth noting, we have had another brewing company that had changed ownership, which was Empire Brewing Company, and when Myers Creek came in, they had asked for tax breaks, and at that time, those tax breaks included sales tax abatement on the improvements they're gonna make on their property, mortgage recording tax, and the continuation of their pilot. And if you recall, the Empire Brewing Company's pilot was part of the Startup New York program, in which they were enjoying a 100% property, or 100% property tax abatement pilot, commensurate with the state's initiative tying universities to private employers. They were asking for a continuation of that 7 more years. Good Nature Brewing Company, when Carrie Blackmore approached the IDA and talked with the community about property tax breaks to help curb the costs and expenses of running a new brewery, they had decided from a community standpoint, from a business standpoint, that they would appreciate the 15-year enhanced uniform tax exemption policy that we already have on the books for a manufacturer, which is what we've given them, or had given Good Nature. The new ownership is coming, asking the IDA for a continuation of that 15-year pilot, which I believe has 8 years remaining on it. I think I said 7.
No, you said they're in year 7, so that's consistent. Then they do have 8 years.
Yes, so they're,
So originally, this was considered for a locally grown company owned by local people.
yes,
This is different. This is an equity firm from
Colorado.
Colorado.
That is correct. Their requested continuation would be a 50% tax break for the next 3 years and a 25% tax break for the remaining 5, which would be, that's the schedule that is, that had been laid out for good.
Basically, they're stepping into the shoes of existing pilot.
They currently have 15 employees and they plan to ramp it up to 30.
So they're doing well.
They have had their doors shut. They've been doing substantial renovations and improvements to their restaurant area, try to serve the community better. And they either just opened their doors or are about to open their doors.
They're open, but it's only recently closed.
Since the end of last year?
I'm not sure it's gonna take that long.
Okay. It's been a while.
So they've made a substantial investment in the facility in anticipate, well, I'm gonna say, they were open, they were conducting business, they shut down for renovations.
They've made some fairly substantial changes, especially of the layout of the restaurant portion of it. I think that they've changed some of their beers in that they've kind of pared it down. I think they've got their 2, which was kind of their originals, the blonde and brown, and they just introduced a sport, which is their third. So they went from Good Nature Brewing Company to Good Sport. There's a play on that and that, but that's how I understand it.
And they didn't ask for any consideration for tax abatement, sales tax or anything for all their renovations.
They came to us and said, we do have some investments that we can make. And I simply voiced to them that a previous brewing company in Madison County came to our board and requested additional sales tax and continuation. And our board made a decision to offer a modified, shortened pilot to help them stabilize their operations. I think I left it as that. It was something fairly short, and their response was, thanks for the insight, we won't be requesting any sort of sales tax abatement.
So obviously, that's not part of the exchange of ownership. The pilot's not. That has to be reauthorized by us.
Yes, when I reached out to them, Chris's instruction was make sure they get an application into us and we'll bring it before the board for
Which is
consideration.
subject to public review.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a public hearing resolution. Because they're stepping in, they would step into the shoes of the existing pilot. They would get that real property tax benefit for the remaining years of the pilot. That's more than $100,000 of benefit for them. So we need to hold a public hearing. So this resolution just authorizes holding that public hearing. If we hold a public hearing and the board decides to move forward with this and a subsequent meeting approving it, that would be approving them entering into an assignment and assumption agreement. Again, I keep saying stepping into the shoes, but that's what that document does. They assume all of the contracts that were originally entered into by Good Nature, become the project applicant in essence.
So what we have before us, and I think the discussion is healthy, and I think we ought to continue and get everyone's insight, but what's before us is an application, and our typical next step would be to call for a public hearing, notify the affected taxing entities, the village, the town, the county, and the school district, and this is what's being asked of us. What do you guys think? That's not a step we need to take, but that would be the natural progression should the board want to go that route. But Liz, I think you've got some good thoughts or opinion. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, go ahead.
Well, I would ask about the what for question that we always ask for, or what for, I guess, not what for.
We can ask them the what for too.
On their application, they could say, yes, these, it is essential that, well, is it reasonably necessary, at the bottom of page 8, question number 9, is it reasonably necessary to preserve the competitive position? Blah, 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 and it says yes. So,
But there's a
yeah,
but.
is it reasonably necessary to discourage the company or such project occupant from removing blah, blah, blah.
Moving their facilities outside of New York State, right?
Yeah, but they had already gone through and made all of these acquisitions. So does that, how does that square, I guess?
We asked the same question of Myers Creek. You went through with the purchase of this property, a distressed property
At auction.
at auction,
Yeah.
and you made the decision before picking up the phone and calling us. That was, reasonable. Reasonable to ask that question too.
And I think probably it's pretty reasonable also to assume that real property tax exemption financially buy. I think that's a huge consideration. I know they've already put shovels in the ground and done renovations and put money in the project.
So they knew that.
Yeah.
I would hope they would know what the risks are and the liabilities.
Yeah.
I would hope. If they didn't, that's really bad planning.
Yeah, we assume they went in eyes wide open and knew that this was a possibility.
I cannot guarantee that the new ownership was fully aware of what IDA pilots are, being owners from, but very well could too. I don't know what they were thinking, but
Well, they're Colorado, right?
I think the primary investors are out of Colorado, or the private equity firm is out of Colorado.
Well, they probably look at the current financials and determine, this is what the pilot.
Yeah, so they were made aware
So
that
they're-
that's right.
So they
Yeah.
Exists.
reasonably assume that that's going to continue.
The tax returns and things that they analyzed, I don't know if there was a differentiation of property tax payments versus
The pilot.
pilot payment. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't,
Were they accredited initially?
I don't think so. I think it was owned by, I think it was a bank that had sold the assets. It was a distressed property.
So they might have even got it at, bargain basement prices too. So they might have saved some there because it wasn't distressed.
So they had the winning bid at a public auction?
I think a bankruptcy judge, I don't know the legal terminology for how it came about, but essentially they bought the distressed assets and have been running it and are trying to do some restructuring at this point, some improvements, trying to refresh it and put some new names and a new face to it
They're reopened already?
in the last week or so.
A little longer than that, but not much less or something. Did I see someplace a dollar amount, 3.5 million or something?
It did state a number in the application, 3.5 is approximately right.
That's what they're saying. Over
Off the top of my head.
how long a period of time? Is it would it be the 8 years that's left?
No, that's what they're paid for.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
You're saying they paid
What's-
how much for it?
That's why, I thought I saw something in that 3 point.
So what did we do for
Or
the
check.
brewery?
Purchase price.
Myers Creek
We did a,
sent it to Liz, but printed it out in case we had that
We
question.
called it the list compromise.
Purchase price, $3,750,000.
I remember that was the one, we did a new pilot, this was a modified pilot, it wasn't the pilot that paid.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. So
Well, we know
down
we did, right?
For an easy answer to Rick's question, we compromised with Myers Creek and offered them a 5-year, 50% and a 10% step up year over year for 5 years.
Yeah. Which is rookie.
And what was Empire Group's original?
That was
Original
100%.
capital investment on
No, their original pilot.
Oh,
a 10-year, 100%.
That was, yes.
That was the big difference in kind of what I was,
Yeah.
And Good Nature was eligible for that, but did not take it.
Good Nature, I would go as far as to say they had a very long and hard thought about that question, as I recall, and worked closely with probably Colgate, even though they're not a taxing entity, but the village, the town, and had a very frank discussion that we want some revenues, we want the economic benefit to come back to you as the municipality as we're gonna be making this investment, but we think that this would be a good compromise if you guys would meet us halfway, or, allow for a 15-year pilot. And to be honest, I think they were the first farm brewery license in New York State, which, as far as the eligibility for startup New York, there's no question they could have made the same application that Empire did.
So that's ESD.
Yeah.
So So what's the remaining 7-year pilot look like for?
50% break for 3 years, and then a 25% break for the remaining 5 years.
But you said we could modify that however we wanted to or not?
We have the ability you have the ability as a board to offer a alternative, which is what we did with Myers Creek. Again, Myers Creek was a more aggressive ask, and substantial benefits. I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers in front of us, but based on what I was looking at yesterday and responding to Liz, if Empire's case was a 10-year, 100% pilot, good nature brewing.
They have 5 years left of that?
They have 8 years remaining above 15.
No, Empire.
I think.
Empire had 7 years remaining when it changed hands. So they were looking for a 7-year benefit, only 3 years worth.
So, did we do a public hearing for Myers Creek?
I'm sure we did.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Anything over 100,000, and generally speaking,
And it was a different pilot, so there's a deviation, so deviation notice had to go up to the tax jurisdiction, so the public is
we might have had 2 public hearings on that. It would have been the original ask, and then after we came back and said, we're going to consider this.
That's not right.
So can we put a dollar amount on what that pilot is worth?
Yep.
Under the existing assumption?
Yes. Going off the top of my head here. Approximately $30,000 in each of the first 3 years, or the remaining 3 years, and then approximately 15,000 for the last 5.
Yeah, so, you're talking about $1 million, probably a couple hundred grand.
$165,000
Okay.
over the next 8 years for the new owners to hopefully stabilize operation and keep it as an ongoing entity.
And what would it amount to if we did 50% for 5 years?
Haven't done that math yet.
So there's Myers Creek, there's a step up. It was 50 for year 1, and then stepped up 10%.
Right.
So they were 100% in years 5.
That is correct. 3 years 6.
Or 6, yeah, 6th year.
The dollar ones would be very simple.
You need to have like the terms before you have a public hearing, because it's all exactly what
We would, yeah, I mean, I don't know if we would probably not present to the public the difference between Myers Creek and this one. I think that'd be a little strange, but you can have a breakdown of what their property tax exemption be.
Because I want to know if I was at a public hearing,
And I'd come prepared for that if that discussion wanted to come.
That's a good idea.
Right.
But again, this is only authorizing, this is all great discussion, this is only authorizing holding the public hearing.
And notifying the affected taxing entities and letting them know what's being requested of us.
But if we don't come to some kind of compromise today and there's a public hearing and we change the terms of the, and we initiate the compromise, will there have to be another public hearing because now the numbers have changed? I mean, by rights, we should have another public hearing so that people could hear what the revised figures are.
Yes, that's
So we
correct.
would have to do that.
That's correct, because if they, you go back to them and say, this is what we're thinking about, they
Right.
from that amendment to the application. That amended application will also now be have a new public hearing.
Right, that's rightfully so.
That's right.
Why wouldn't we just go with the same as Myers Creek? Seems reasonable. They didn't, if they had come in at the beginning and said, we can't make this deal unless you give us a pilot and show us some numbers, then maybe it would have been more reasonable for us to say, yeah, that makes sense. But I don't see why we couldn't just follow the compromise that we did with Myers Creek.
Chris, based on this discussion, if we were to have a public hearing, the public hearing could include language in touching on the fact that the board's current consideration is both what the company is asking plus a modified schedule of 5 years with a 50% year 1 and a 10% step down, so that it is all out of the table, that the board's looking at alternatives and looking at their past history of like businesses.
I mean, I think that's, to be honest, that's a little wishy-washy.
Is it?
Yeah,
I
I want something more definitive.
And I was here thinking, if you adopted this resolution, then we go back to the company and say, this is what we're thinking, get a new amended application, and then present that amended application at the public hearing. I think because this just authorizes holding the public hearing, I would be comfortable with that, that in the meantime, between now and holding the public hearing, they give the amended application back to us. And then you have that on the table for the public with a breakdown.
Assuming that those numbers work for them and that they're willing to modify their ask based on the board's discussion here.
Not really that big of a difference, though, is it? I mean, we're just going to the, toward the UCAP. Well, no, I was just thinking we could
Well, I just,
bring out the whiteboard and,
Right.
look at this and say.
The total dollar amount
The total dollar amount.
sounds like it's gonna be very similar.
Yeah,
I,
but,
I was looking a little differently. I was
okay.
kind of looking at, so if, Empire Brewing had gotten their pilot through us, the 100% exemption through ESD, and it was just our standard
Right, it
pilot.
would be-
Would we have just extended that for Myers Street? And I think the answer is probably yes. Because it wasn't zero. I mean, they were asking for a lot more. They were asking for zero. But if it was our standard pilot, we probably would have agreed to just transfer that and extend that.
Well, each case is unique. I mean, so,
I think that makes sense though, and that's exactly what these folks are doing, right? That's what you're saying.
They just want that to transfer with the business. And
Yeah,
I think it's a reasonable request. And it's not 100%, it's 50% for 3 years and 25% for the remaining 5.
Oh, you're just about to say.
I don't think just doing a quick back in the napkin, it might be, what they're requesting is approximately 165,000 if we're to modify it to a 5-year, 50% with a 10% reduction, or paying 60% of the full assessment in year 6, it would be 90,000 versus 165 in approximate numbers.
okay. Yeah, so it would be.
Becomes more substantial. It's
Yeah.
a question of $75,000 and
you know, 75,000 taxpayers aren't
Among all,
showing.
yeah.
I'm starting to have a different idea, a different perspective on pilots, just because it's been so prevalent of an issue now with solar and wind projects and subsidies that keep these projects going. They wouldn't exist without it. And some people say some of these projects aren't worth the investment, solar projects, for instance, you know, so, I'm not a big pilot fan anymore, I have to admit. So, you know, probably my vote on this would be in the negative.
on the
Just right,
public
the whole-
hearing
Yeah, the whole
resolution.
process, yeah, I think so.
They would not enter, the pilot would be out the window, yeah.
Right. You know, this company spent over $3 million on this project, they're doing capital investment, you know, with renovations, 165,000 would be a number on their balance sheet, but I don't think it's gonna be critical to their cash flow or their income, you know, to their balance sheet. So this is my, again, you know.
So you're saying that it wouldn't pass the but-for test, if that was a requirement? I mean, it's not a requirement.
Wouldn't pass mine. Okay,
Say
so,
that test again, Bob.
But for the benefits, the project wouldn't happen. So,
But for the benefits of the idea.
okay, right.
Yeah. Because the
So-
project already is underway.
Yeah, this is it's a good point, it's a tough case.
But
Because
it-
they're already doing it.
But it's not a requirement. I mean, in this case, right? It's
No,
not-
it's a consideration. What do you think, were the driving factors that caused Good Nature to not be successful?
well, that's a good question.
I think there's too many breweries. I
Well-
think they had such high depth.
Okay,
I
It's
mean, they're,
they didn't have enough.
She had a rough time after Matt left.
Demographics, did that play a part in it?
I think they went bigger than originally planned, meaning their costs skyrocketed. They expected to do a lot of wholesale business, which I don't know if that panned out. I think a lot of the brewing companies, including Empire, said, "Oh, we're gonna build really big, and then we're gonna be able to do brewing for you and for you and for you, and you can private label it, but we're gonna do it because we have these huge facilities." I don't think that panned out. So then the wholesaling out to, you know, you can sell a pint of beer for $6 at your own, you know, tasting room, But when you're selling a keg to the bar down the road, you're only making $160 for the whole keg, and there's 140 beers there. So the retail versus the wholesale, I think that those numbers became difficult. I think paying off the debt load and not having the wholesale or the private labeling and all of those things kind of added up.
Pretty specific knowledge there, Kevin.
He's got firsthand knowledge.
Draft beer is actually 6 1/4.
He wants to know his cost, he wants to know the business.
I was trying to play.
I think it's very similar to the Empire story, overcapitalized and couldn't crack sufficiently large wholesale market. And the retail market isn't big enough.
Yeah, I don't think when they started, there was interesting numbers, like there were 72 craft beer breweries in New York State, and today there's 480. I'm making up the numbers, but every community's got their own craft brewery, so it's not as special that you're gonna be able to buy Empire Brewing Company in Buffalo and in the Southern Tier. They've got their own brewing companies. It's not.
There was a lot of state, local, and regional support.
Yeah.
This is really a good idea, farm breweries, get in there, do it, we'll support you and so on. And in the end, the numbers were correct, probably.
It didn't match it to the.
Didn't match to the reality of the situation. Then there were some other personal relationships and so on.
I remember visiting them when they were pretty much working out of their garage.
Yeah.
There was a great story.
Okay, so there, that fell apart for them, but then what do we do for this? Having done it for Myers Creek, it seems to be for us, it's somewhat difficult to say no to you.
Yeah.
But I certainly wouldn't want to, I don't personally think we got to get any more. I mean, I can see why we continue based on your suggestion.
And then I look, I also look at the business as its own entity, and not who owned it, or who bought it, or who did this, carry that goes with the business. I mean,
It'd been a lot easier if they had come to us at the outset, I think.
But I do look at who owns the business. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why one of the first questions I asked when I brought forward was, this was a locally owned company, and regardless of whether or not they're out of business, a lot of it had to do with whatever circumstances, but, this is some high-falutin equity firm from Colorado, I personally don't think they should be given a break. That's my opinion, and so.
I'm just curious, how did this company in Colorado even find out?
I still think they were.
there's companies that just specialize in distressed assets, they got five mortgages from the banks because they're non-performing asset, they they sell for pennies on a dollar.
Private equity.
And then,
I think they were
And they-
investors.
Take over the
I think they were investors. And I
It doesn't work here, it doesn't work here.
That's fine.
There's a Colgate.
I use Colgate protection.
Yeah, I think there's a Colgate alum who was a member of this firm.
But the business is local, so it's true.
Yeah.
And the guy who's running it is from Montreal. He has several restaurants.
Evans?
Evan Adrian?
Yeah.
Employees are gonna be local.
That's fine, that's all fine.
He picked up, he relocated his family to Hamilton.
He's living there.
But he's just the operator, he's not an owner.
Oh, then it's somebody else.
And what were we saying the total tax savings would probably?
They're requesting tax breaks of approximately $165,000 over a 8-year period.
Years, so 20 grand a year spread out between the city, the county, the school district, the village.
Which all have realized tax increases over the past couple of years, all of them. So, that's a spigot that's gotta be closed off a little bit. All these municipalities, school districts, counties, they're all initiating impressively high tax increases. So this to me is just part of that component of controlling costs from to the taxpayer.
Well, keep in mind, these pilots are based on the assessed value.
I understand,
So,
I understand,
you know, it's,
There's a commensurate increase.
yeah.
I understand that. Whether or not
So there
proportional,
could be,
who knows?
and there could be, you know, the capital investment could increase the value of the property as well, so I mean.
Could,
Yeah.
could, no guarantee, could. I mean, every day we're hearing people that are calling our office, and granted, you know, we can't do anything on a federal level, but there are people out there really getting squeezed. Okay, the county hit us with a big tax increase, the town's gonna be doing it soon, you know, I mean, these are tax increases that don't have any end in sight. So, and there are a lot of factors that figure into that, and to me, this is just another one, okay, that factors into why our taxes are going up. And again, I use the example of these massive solar and wind projects that are asking for pilots. And then those companies get bought and sold a dozen times in those kind of contractual periods, you know, and their bottom line gets bigger and the taxpayer bottom line gets smaller.
Some of that control has been taken away from New York. from
Right, now we no
local
longer have home
municipalities.
rule, you know, and we have NYSERDA making decisions, all right, on the local level. So all this, like, there's a confluence of factors here working against the average taxpayer.
A lot of which is out of our control.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. But what little is, I think we could exercise.
I don't know what the Hamilton increase was, but I know Morrisville was high, and Casanova ended up being pretty high. The school district.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it can only be the 2%, right, unless they
No.
have a referendum.
no, they can exceed the property tax cap. And the thing is that tax cap is really smoke and mirrors, because there are so many factors that can be calculated into that just allow you to go way beyond the tax cap. I mean, our Brookfield hit a 4.2% tax increase this year, and they graduated 9 kids. You know, $8.4 million budget for 9 kids. You know, after a while, you just look at this and say, what's got to stop here? What has got to stop? I know what's got to stop is government spending, but that's one of the things. But it just goes on and on and on. Sorry, so I don't mean to get on my soapbox.
So the resolution before us, and is to call for a public hearing, and their application reflects they're looking for the extension of the existing pilot.
That is their current ask.
Did I pass that out?
Yes,
I don't know if I did.
So any modification from that, they require a new application to have a public hearing.
Unless based on this discussion,
Yeah.
they choose to modify their application, we could hold a public hearing nonetheless and still come back to the board based on any modification, should some modification come before the holding of the public hearing.
Exactly. This just says we can, if we want a public hearing. We say to them, give us an amended application reflecting this other pilot that the board's interested in, then we'll hold a public hearing.
And what is the current tax break left on the current one? What is it, the year increase?
Yeah, I think Kip said that the benefit, well, 165,000.
Yeah, but what is the year break?
So our 15-year enhanced benefit is a 75% break in the first 5 years, 50% in the years 6 through 10, and 25% in the last 5 years. They are in year 7, so there's 8 years remaining. 3 years at a 50% break,
Right.
and then 5 years at a 25% property tax break. They would pay 75% of what the full tax amount would be in the last 5 years.
And your estimate is that adds up to 165?
Approximately 165,000.
Based on the current assessed value of the property.
And what we did with Meyer, if we want some consistency, would change it to.
Approximately, just again, what I've done, approximately $90,000 of benefit.
So, but I would, I would caution you just to hold a public hearing anyways, because even though it's under $100,000, we don't know what the assessed value is going to be on the road. Transparency, hold the public hearing.
By law, we're required on anyone requesting more than $100,000. Customary, what our agency has historically done is hold a public hearing on any benefit that's being asked within reason. And I personally make a phone call to each of the affected taxing entities saying, here's this legal document that our lawyers told us to send. This is what it means. You make sure. Sorry, Chris.
The Myers Street was 50% the first year, 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%.
So just full disclosure, if we went that road and did the same thing that we did for Myers, that's a deviation, 30-day, for 30-day notice, et cetera, et cetera. That's fine.
Yep.
Something to think about.
And I think why it hasn't been, again, at least in my mind, we're in July, taxable status date for the local, for the governments has passed. The school is still there, but if we wanted additional consideration and there was a question of modifying, we can send out and do the notices and let people know that. But it would be good to get insight from the local
So
municipalities.
why don't we call them and find out what the local people say? You know, does the county?
That would be the formal.
Does the county?
That's the application.
How many people
That's the
show up to
clause.
these meetings? How many people show up to these meetings?
Often very few people.
There you go. So public input is,
But we're still offering it.
no doubt, no
And
doubt.
we're
But
streaming it online, we're doing.
You're saying how many people show up to public hearing?
people, yeah, believe me, I went on the boards and all that to know that very few people show up for these public hearings, you know, for whatever reason. So just, but just, I can understand the appeal of, you know, the reasoning that, you know, we'll hold a public hearing, the public will have knowledge and all this, but the public for the most part doesn't show up for these meetings.
Unless it's very
And so
controversial.
it's
Unless it's
controversial.
controversial.
Right, well, and that's good too,
But it does give a chance for the school district,
no doubt.
county, and the village, and the town,
Right, I
to
understand.
go to the public hearing.
Sure.
But Jim lobbying the phone call would only help that.
To explain what the situation is, what consideration, what the benefit may be, what the impact would be to them. To at least, so that they can talk with their constituents about it, even if their constituents or the public doesn't show, everybody's still fully
You can
aware
say,
of what.
well, you know what, you had a chance and you didn't take it. Okay, and I've heard that said too. So, okay, all right. Okay.
So we should also ask ourselves, what will we do in the future with other businesses that change hands in the middle of the pilot?
It's a great question. What is it? Do we have a policy?
No,
We don't.
Do we need a policy?
that would be the first policy of any idea that I've ever heard of. That's
No, but the precedent, you know,
Yeah.
that for future boards, this is what we've done in the past, or this is what you can expect if you're midway through your pilot, the business changes hand. That gives a business some value. Sure. As well.
And in talking this over with others in the past, it's been, well, if the same impact is going to be felt by the community, it might be reasonable to continue the pilot if it's going to help better viability.
Same amount of jobs or maybe more, if they make more of an investment. You're gonna keep it out of the hands of Colgate, which would be taxing, wholly tax exempt, unless it was. I guess it was
There's some good
They get
points there.
taxable.
It's not easy for us to determine if they really need it.
Right, and,
You know,
but then
they
again,
can give us all kinds of numbers, and
Right.
none of us here might be able to. Maybe, Steve might be able to look at it, but it was his bank.
Yes, I'm not sure whether or not you did it,
Steve,
yeah.
they look at it either.
Right.
so originally, I mean, we granted those benefits and the business wouldn't have been built there, but for those benefits, because we extended it. So why wouldn't that stay with the business? Through,
I guess my question to that, Rick, is this.
if it meets all of the same criteria.
Can we afford those kind of benefits any longer? And that's we could probably debate that for the next several hours, is communities that are losing self-control, communities that are, you know, especially middle class, low income people are being strapped by higher and higher taxes, you know, with a lot of reasons why, you know, and it's a discussion worth having from time to time.
Sure.
As the environment changes.
So that's what we look
We're
at.
New York State's broke in 2027. Okay, we're broke. We don't have enough money for operating costs by 2027. You know, they're just just out of control spending, 242 billion this year. You know, and next year they're probably looking at 260. From where's that money gonna come from? You know, and like Helen Weinstein told me, It's gonna come from the taxpayers. She's the chair of the finance committee she retired, we're just gonna get it from the taxpayers.
And it all comes down to that.
At what point does it stop?
Taxpayer pays for everything.
Right, at what point does it stop?
So, but right now they're paying $30,000 a year in taxes. Yep. I mean, if it was a vacant building.
And they wanna pay less now, and they wanna pay
Shut it
less.
down and they sold it at auction and Colby picked it up.
Well, they don't want to pay less, they want to pay what the applicant was paying before. They're not asking for a cut like my street was.
So they'll just grow. Yeah.
And
I
that's,
mean, even with it, if we were to extend the benefits, the tax revenues are gonna grow over time.
Maybe,
And substantially in
can't say
7 years.
can't say that for 100%, but yeah, there's a
well, the
problem.
schedule is
Yeah,
defined. The amount of revenue going to the taxing entities will, based on the current schedule, increase in 3 years. Like,
You know, if they don't meet all the criteria it's spelled out in the pilot, you can terminate.
sure.
So,
Okay.
but we.
I don't think you need to do much more to try to convince me or change my mind. Okay? And I respect that. And I think maybe we're talking more principle than practicality here, but again, seeing it every day now, or literally seeing it every day. There's a point where people, we gotta say enough is enough. Enough is enough, so.
but I would doubt that the original pilot request was to improve their chance of viability and success.
The original.
It wasn't enough.
The original. Well, you can't say that's the,
I'm sure it was, I'm sure it
I'm sure it was.
They weren't making enough money to,
But this is, I think if you're comparing who holds the business now and who held it before, it's almost apples and oranges. I mean, this is a big equity firm. This was a couple who was working hard, struggling right from the start, really, at this, after this expansion. It's just, they had too much working against them. This doesn't seem to be the case.
This is, these are the types of businesses that, I would like to really help. I mean, they take things and ingredients and put things together and make something from nothing to sell. That's adding value to the community. They're not just.
I agree with you.
They're just not retail. You take stuff in from China and then reselling it to people.
I don't know where
It's homegrown. I mean, it really is a.
Well, this Colorado equity firm, I don't know what they're doing with their profits.
Yeah,
But they might be investing in offshore too, so just saying, they're, who knows what they're doing with their money that they're generating from this operation. I don't know. I guess you can say that about any business for that matter. Nobody's pure, that's for sure, but.
But we know a lot of what goes on behind the scenes and, the money flows
Yeah, it
in
stinks.
from,
It stinks.
big money.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It doesn't justify it, but.
So I would still like to hold
Yeah.
precedent that we hold public
Do
hearing.
you want to make a motion?
I'll really.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second it, yeah.
And
I'll second
Let's do a
the
public
local agencies, the local governments will, somebody will show up and make a recommendation back to us about what we should do. Let's hear from them about their position and the general public if they show up, which is unlikely.
Never know.
That's right, you might have a packed room.
You never know.
99% of the time, I think this board has gone in agreement on what the local community wants. So it would be good to get their input regardless, even if it's not getting every citizen, we'll at least be getting it from the chief executive of the taxing agency.
By rights, all this stuff should come up for referendum. Anytime public money is being spent, it should come up for referendum. I know that would be terribly complicated and difficult and all that, but anytime public money is spent, public benefits are offered or exercised, it should come up for referendum. So, well, we can't, I know we can't.
That's interesting.
If you're democracy,
Yeah.
the government.
Nope.
You like people to do that.
Exactly. I wasn't like
More legal bills, I mean.
Okay.
Nobody would need food.
So the public hearing would say the continuation of the current.
Well, this just outlines fully the public hearing, and then I think maybe Kip talks to the tax jurisdiction so we figure out.
Okay, and then we'll have to have another public hearing.
Well,
The board will have to have a discussion.
if based on this discussion and my relaying with the company that's asking for the assistance, explain the history of what's happened elsewhere, what, the board's thoughts were on the process, and if we are to advance a resolution authorizing a public hearing, and they come back to me with an alternative request based on our discussion, we would be able to present that.
So we won't start putting a notice in the newspaper or anything like that.
Immediately now.
Until this is fleshed out.
Does our resolution allow for that kind of delay? We don't specify a date.
No.
We just authorize you to conduct one.
We do it a year later.
I mean, I just really like the idea of a public hearing because I don't know if you would get the average citizen to show up, but it does give the leadership of the entities involved the opportunity to at least respond directly and to muster up political support if they think that's what they need.
Either way,
Either way.
they're in favor.
Make a statement on the record.
Right.
To let us know what,
And that's why we're supposed to have a public hearing to inform us that we don't make the decisions unilaterally as, so in that sense, I feel like we're at least adhering to some basic democratic principles of giving those in charge an opportunity to consider it and take action appropriately.
Well, I don't think anybody's denying anybody any democratic principles, or I think it's just.
yes, you are.
Well, believe me, I think you can tell by the tone of this debate that I firmly believe in. Yeah, it's a great discussion. Yeah, and I.
You are doing your job.
If I got in a soapbox, I apologize. It's just, like I said, for someone who is dealing with this almost every day, and given the fact that I watch the federal government spend billions and billions and billions of dollars, okay, and misappropriations and inefficient spending, it touches a raw nerve. It touches a
That
raw
raised
nerve.
the issue with the housing and.
Right, yeah, and I thought that was great.
So it's the same,
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about them.
So, just a point of mention, I don't think we have ever approved a pilot that didn't have the support of the taxing jurisdictions.
That's okay, yeah, that's, I think that's a good story.
Yeah.
Perspective, yeah.
So, gosh, why would we do that? Yeah.
And we went through that trouble.
Right, we have never,
No.
and never supported the taxing jurisdictions.
No, I think this board does a great job. It really does. It's been an honor being on it.
In fact, we denied one,
And
mass marketplace.
that's right.
Right.
And a lot of people came out to that public hearing, if you recall. We had a packed house, there was over 40 people. We held it in their community specifically. We held the board
We
meeting.
held it in the hangar.
That's right, yeah.
They're still there.
And they're still there.
So doing great business.
This was.
Actually, the owners, from what I understand, I saw the owners, they said they'll never invest in New York City again.
Well, in Madison.
We didn't get them to file.
No, because they were treated so poorly by whatever, I don't remember.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was at a board in Casanova, and he said, we'll never invest in New York City again.
They had it partially built. They had the concrete and the steel girders. But they said, hey, we were expecting to tie into municipal water and sewer at the village, and they're not giving us access. Because we're in the town of Madison, not in the village of Hamilton. They provide services to their residents and constituents. They said, but they're not gonna give us access. We have a pilot to offset the fact that we need to dig a well. And we said, you know what? The community's really against this,
But
and
Georgia won't give you.
you've already started construction. Our but-for argument is,
Why is New York State?
It's not there.
So,
we have a country.
We have a resolution, moved and seconded.
moved, seconded, Liz?
Seconded, yeah.
And, any discussion related to the resolution? If not, roll call?
Laura?
Yes.
Solka?
Nay.
Rogers?
Yes.
Durkey?
Yes.
Moran?
Yes.
Bargos? Motion carried.
Okay. Good discussion.
Okay, following along, assuming I'm doing the same agenda, sorry guys, I review my own drafts and sometimes move it. Barlow Street, I guess just an update. I hope that the Barlow Street, this is 120 Barlow Street is where Dutchland Plastics is located in Canastota. The owner of their property has had some difficulty in making their pilot payments. Just most recently, in the last few weeks, the village was kind of trying to get it. The property owner has expressed the difficulty in that they don't bill to the right address. They have,
Email thread.
I think there's a 5-page email thread followed by a spreadsheet that shows that they were late by 6 to 9 months on a couple of different payments. The schools have had difficulty. There's no doubt that there's been minor hiccups in the billing. I think there has been other instances where payments just simply weren't made for a very long time. And as Chris reminds me, they have an obligation when we enter into a pilot with them, even if they're not getting billed, that they are obligated to make their pilot payments. We've just had some difficult run-ins in dealing with the developer. So I keep bringing annually.
Yeah.
It's been relatively ongoing. I can tell you that the benefit is enjoyed by the company, not the landlord. It's simply a pass-through, but it's the landlord required to make the payment and who gives us a hard time. And it's just sometimes hard. It's sometimes pulling teeth. I don't think the municipalities necessarily want to hurt the company. They're a good employer, Dutchland Plastics, rotomold manufacturer. They have taken a property that was, say it's a brownfield, it went up in flames in the early 2000s, maybe. It was cleaned up. One of the first successful Restore New York grant programs coming from New York State helped the developer to build a speculative property or find a user while he was still planning their design, and he landed a very good company that's operating and doing exactly what everybody wants. So, there's just a question, and I floated before the board just to keep in mind that should we have more troubles, should they not make their payments on time, you as the board have the opportunity to say, we're going to rescind these benefits.
Put you back on the tax.
Put you back on the tax rolls 100%.
That's usually better.
It's usually, well, we've cracked that whip a few times and it hasn't necessarily stopped, but I just talked with Kathy Williams today, earlier last week. She sent a confirmation email following that chain that said, hey, we received your overnight package that included the check and it's cleared. There was one time in which a check didn't clear or bounced. So there's been some gains. I'll just leave it at that, but I bring it before you because if a decision is made, I want to make sure that you guys are in the know of. We've talked about it several times. It's on our radar, and it's, one that we're keeping a close eye on. At least we are from a staff perspective. And
So the village has been paid then?
the village has been paid, the town has been paid, the school has been paid.
School files not due.
The school was paid.
From last year.
Yes.
And then another one's coming up.
New one's coming.
The county. County too.
Yes. I believe everyone's square at this point,
So
as of July 10th.
there's no damage to the building in any reasons.
I tried to drive down there because I was concerned. The police still had it roped up. There was one death on Main Street, I think very close to Barlow Street. A lot of damage to power, which Amanda and I were watching it come through, but it happened back there. A lot of damage from that, and you guys saw what has happened in Rome.
Well, I didn't know about it, and my mother said, thanks for checking on me, you survived the tornado.
So that more of just an FYI on Barlow Street.
So how many years is this now? I mean, you've had the same issue with the county.
Just a couple, 2 or 3 years, depending on the taxing entity and their payments.
It was in 2019, the project.
Originated.
Just looking at the project of the year.
3 years.
That's right. Project of the year.
So, and how long was this pilot?
It's a 15-year. It's our enhanced for a high-tech manufacturer. This was the Barlow Street pilot spread, oh, that was in your, no. I've got one more copy if anyone's interested.
Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, this is in our,
That was part of the,
that's in our package, yeah.
We already have this, right?
yeah, I'm sorry.
So, I mean, so he's already violated, breached the terms of the contract on pilot.
Why not?
Every year.
Problem.
Every year he's done that. So how much, I mean,
Is there a late fee?
There are late fees that can be billed. The school and the village have given them a pass in the past, but the fees are substantial. 5% penalty for the first month that it's overdue, and then 1% for each month that it continues to be overdue. So up to 17% in the first year, conceivably, should they. I don't think we'd let that go that long.
But very technically, them not paying on time is a breach of contract. It's a fault. It's a fault of the pilot agreement. So you would be within your purview to say no. But
Just take the whole thing.
so in our agreement with the land, the owner, does he have a remedy? I mean, we can, as soon as the payment's late, we can find a breach of contract and terminate. Is there a remedy?
I think the language in there, because they all kind of blended together, at least they're all tied together with the pilot. I think they had 30 days from notice. I could look at that one.
Okay.
But, assuming that passes, you give them notice of that, and we do it.
And they've gone beyond 30 days.
Yeah. No, I think,
Well, I think the next time he does a stern letter, and the next time.
We've had stern conversations via email that have been very direct of,
But the next.
the board has the,
Yeah.
But the next time, the 31st day, we will terminate.
I feel like the last time this happened, when we reminded them about going back in the tax roll, suddenly things happened.
Well, these things could happen, but this time, you should
Yeah,
tell them
it
it
will
will happen. The next year. It'll go on for the next. 4 years.
It obviously works for them to push the envelope.
Or they can deal with, the thing is, so if it goes back on the tax rolls, the county makes the town, villages, and school districts whole. And they don't have to deal with it. It's dealt with the county, so. And that's the thing, I don't like the villages, these smaller municipalities having to hound people to get the pilot. I think that's just,
It's bizarre.
We don't want to-
give you a benefit.
we're not gonna tolerate it.
You don't have to provide you, and yet you still pay like
I don't think we should tolerate it.
we've let the company know and keep them in the lines of communication, and the company has been adamant. We would like to continue this benefit, please. We're sorry that it's late. We'll make sure that the owner of the property gets their payment.
So that's the problem. I mean,
Just they have a contract
to
between.
talk directly, it's going to the developer, right?
Mhm.
They give him the money, he doesn't turn around.
According to their contract, as I understand it from the company that operates the manufacturing facility, the way that their lease agreement reads, after the property or pilot payment is made, we will reimburse you after you've shown that you paid it. When I reminded the developer of that fact, his direct response was, that contract is none of your business. Which just shows the level of difficulty that we
He's a
have.
known entity in my world.
Which is why I keep bringing it up. And not that this would matter, but I did reach out to my counterpart in Rome and said, hey, I think there's some projects that this developer has done. Does this name ring a bell? And his response was, we've canceled 3 pilots and have another on our agenda for consideration later this week.
United County ideas have had.
So this is a
They
great,
had no-
this is a great conversation given the debate we had a little while ago. Okay, could I say, case made, point made? No, I can't.
Which what is what it is, not that that should impact, but just for some colorful commentary.
But look at all this work that Kathy brings into the trip. When you know it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have to do that.
And I, kindly asked what the political temperature is. And we're continuing to gather that feedback. But I think that's a good message that I will share with the taxing entities and others. This is the conversation we had in the board's feelings, that we're not going to tolerate it in 31 days past the due date is going to be a trigger that.
Terminate.
Thank you for that guidance. All seasonings ingredients. We've brought this up in the past. We do have a formal action that is being brought before you. Simply put, the company's doing real well. They need to extend their line of credit. It needs the blessing of the IDA to be able to take out the additional credit, and they're asking for the exemption of mortgage reporting tax on the extra $1 million worth of line of credit or loan. I believe, my understanding is in New York State, you still pay the mortgage reporting tax on a line of credit as if it were a loan. Because it's
I
more.
didn't know that.
I'm good.
So we have been asked to bring before the board both the sign off authorizing their ability to access additional financing to allow the company to grow, and asking for the mortgage reporting tax break, which we estimate to be $10,000 based on the $1 million line of credit.
So is there a capital investment, or is it just increasing production, what's their?
I think it's working capital, line of credit working capital.
How does you justify exemption on mortgage reporting tax if it's not being used to purchase equipment or expanding the footprint or?
I think they are,
Capital investment.
Are we sure it's just for working capital?
I don't know.
Something to that one, but.
no, our correspondence has been coming from the bank's attorney saying,
Any new mortgage that they enter into, because the IDA has a leasehold interest in the property, right? Like the original transaction, the IDA has to sign that new mortgage, so we have to kick the tires on to make sure you guys are protected as an IDA. Question here is, and I don't want to steal your thunder.
you're not stealing anything.
They want the mortgage recording tax, so we would, provide a mortgage recording tax affidavit, we would sign the mortgage, but it's for $10,000, which, after we, there's some legal fees about this. I'm just wondering if it's juice worth the squeeze. And I haven't heard back from the company on that.
I have heard back that they are seeking the mortgage reporting tax.
And we'll keep ours minimal.
Yep.
It's not-
And I said that you're gonna have to eat our legal fees and
So we don't even need a public hearing, it's only $10,000 more kind of.
Does that answer your question?
No,
Yeah.
it does not.
I know, I just want to give the full picture that I know.
I don't know.
So how does that, so any business in Madison County that wants to refinance or increase their line of credit,
They would have to
could
be,
come to the IDA and ask for a mortgage exemption for working capital? I could see if it's for,
Well, only if they're only doing this because they have an original transaction.
I know that, but it's not, they're not
Building something.
building anything. They're not.
they did construct, off the top of my head, 14,000 square feet, 28,000 square feet. But they recently, that's why we have a pilot agreement and why they're coming to us, is because
benefits for that.
they did expand their production capability, and here the business is growing and needs.
You folks authorized me with more sales tax exemption that was already authorized, remember that, we did that, so they are growing.
They had cost overruns and came back to the IDA and said we had, off the top of my head, $80,000 worth of sales tax abatement. We need to go up to 130 based on our cost overruns.
So we did that.
Mhm.
This is something.
This is working capital.
So John's keeps in my head.
Me too, I gotta cut my spending.
I don't.
Without even knowing what the $1 million is for, maybe it's to buy yachts for the board of directors.
I have been told.
I've gotten very little correspondence on this one.
Yeah, I've been told by the CEO that their business is doing very well and that they are asking for an additional line of credit for $1 million to assist the company with their continued growth. That their projections are positive and their growth has been great.
And but for tax. That's irrelevant.
I don't know if it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't know, it just seems odd that for a line of credit, that you get a public benefit.
It's a fair question. We've had IDAs that give another mortgage, a second mortgage down the road. And often more times than not, it's to build an addition. So I hear
But I'm not under the impression, I'm not aware, I'm under the impression it's a working capital line of credit extension for $1 million.
Did we get,
Is there an application?
No.
you. No.
did we assist them before on the line?
No, typically they
On
don't.
the line
On
of
the mortgage, the requirement of sales tax.
Yeah, but did we do it on the line of credit?
No.
No,
We did this on the mortgage.
This would be completely new and.
I mean, we've ever, this has never come to us.
No.
So is the line of credit
I
in
thought
the
it was a brand
mortgage?
new loan.
Option, is there an option in the mortgage for a line of credit?
I thought it was, I thought
Well,
it was a brand new loan, line of credit, but I could be off.
I don't know, maybe we should table the resolution so we have more information.
Perfectly fine.
That's what I was thinking.
Motion to table. Second by Steve.
Who had the original, I'm sorry?
I did.
I'll recycle them.
Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, the further explanation, the mortgage is to secure additional / potential debt. It is not an anticipated project. Does that require additional paperwork?
Because mortgage tax goes to the
Madison County.
and it gets distributed out to the towns and villages. That helps reduce property taxes.
I love mortgage tax. As a matter of fact, when I was in the assembly, I voted to increase the mortgage tax, I believe, so
And that's,
we took a hit for that.
Okay.
anything that reduces property taxes.
It helps.
So,
Yes, I know more.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Other activities. There are a couple of letters. There has been quite a lot of discussion. You may be aware there is a project that we've recently approved, and that's for the redevelopment of the Hotel Oneida. The Oneida is what it's being coined as. They are working with the city in trying, I don't know if anybody's interested in the engineering report, but it's, they're working with the city to secure parking directly adjacent, so a city parking lot for them, for their apartment dwellers, as it's a mixed-use redevelopment of the property.
So this is DRI money.
The state came in with a DRI award of $2.9 million
For this project.
for this project in particular.
That's gonna help.
So they have been working with the city, and the city is trying to carve out parking spaces, not only for the Hotel Oneida, but one parking spot for All Seasonings Ingredients. Also recently acquired property in downtown. I think they've got an additional 20,000 square feet of administrative type space.
Wow.
So they're continuing to grow and invest in the community. But again, this parking is key to this project's success. The city, from my discussions with them, is that they would like to find a way to do this. Historically, we have done this before. If you recall, the Zeller building for the Costello eye surgeons under Max Smith as the mayor, City of Oneida. So there are two letters in your handout, one from the City of Oneida and another from the developers on their intentions. Chris thought that it would be a good starting point, just so that this board and the community at large understands we aren't instigating this. We're not, they are asking us to facilitate, and in the future, there's probably going to become an ask. I want to make sure that it's on your mind that this is going to be potentially something that will facilitate in the future. We did it for the parking lot because it becomes a more difficult process that could drive the costs up, that could make the project infeasible. I don't know. Simply put, taxpayer property, which is owned by the city, a parking lot, if they're going to give it to a private developer, a private person, they would need to put it to auction, and the highest bidders would have the opportunity to take the exit.
Correct. So it'd be a public bid situation, so it could end up in the company's hands. Whereas if you go through the IDA, you have an appraisal done to establish fair market value, right?
The municipality can gift it to the IDA for economic development purposes. The IDA has the ability to sell it to a preferred user for economic development purposes. That's the process and why we've done it in the past. And it's not the only example. I was trying to, the International Boxing Hall of Fame, state-owned property that used the conduit of the IDA to gift it from the Thruway Authority so that we could give it to a specific user who wants to increase tourism.
The city ends up with a fair market value of spaces.
In the end,
We're
based on
we're
the appraisal, they will pay full appraisal cost plus the subdivision cost plus the surveying costs. And we will make sure that the preferred developer, this hotel project, pays all of those costs, and then we'll remit the money to the city.
Otherwise, someone else would buy it.
Drive the cost up,
And then the project never got
Deny it.
and maybe the parking doesn't get into the hands of the.
Right.
And simply put, these letters are helping to show this is the intention of the project developers and these taxing entities.
So along those lines, has the company or the city, have they discussed having an appraisal done?
An appraisal is either completed or underway. I think it's completed.
Okay.
A subdivision map that's been drawn up by a surveyor has been drawn up. But we expect that both of these companies will be, we will potentially, that we're being asked to facilitate this process, and that should become forthcoming in the future.
So will we buy it and then sell it?
I think we will accept the gift of, and then we will sell it at fair market value or $1
They'll
less.
transfer it to us, we'll pay $1 to the city.
Do you know what the date of this letter was?
I can check my email. But a week ago or less.
Right. And then we sell it, the IDA sells it to the project applicant, for let's say, whatever.
It's probably right around the same time we got them.
Bid to us, we remit.
Came in on Monday.
It's the same thing, and I didn't do it, George worked on it several years ago. So it's a legal structure.
We have the authority to do it, so
Absolutely.
let the city manager know.
There's no issue with us.
know Dave's letters.
The city bought it.
No.
Gift.
Yes.
Because it says that the appraisal should be more coming, so they're paying for the next year.
Not that I didn't think we should,
Starting
but
point.
Yeah, they have to pay our reflection loss.
Yes, they will pay off. It won't hurt.
yeah, I mean, it should, that's right.
And the city has gone through, just remember that the DRI award was done during a previous administration under Helen Acker.
Right.
And now Rick Rossi is the mayor. It was also awarded, or the DRI plan was written under Cassie Rose as the planning director, and she's retired. Was replaced by Chris Henry, who's taken a different position. Barb Henderson, the only other staffer at the planning department. I've told one of my, the smartest planner I know that there might be a job opening. I don't think.
But maybe we've stalled in terms of closing this transaction, so I think once this parking spaces issues, it would help expedite closing the transaction.
I wouldn't say that we have stalled, but the project,
Correct, sorry.
the developers have not pushed for a closing.
Papers have been out for 6 months or so, so we're waiting to close this.
So what do you need anything from the board?
No, just a heads up, and the letters are part of our file, and just,
At some point.
there will be an action in the future,
Yes.
a formal request.
Correct. We would,
Right, we have to accept it and things.
Based on the earlier discussion, can I gauge the board on how willing it might be to go forward?
Another one of those things that's the municipality is asking us to do this.
I know.
Yeah.
so we would
I
adopt
don't
this
see
for
a
meeting.
problem.
If
it's within our authority,
Transfer,
and
authorizing
we
the
can-
sale.
And then
And someone somewhere is benefiting our our municipality, I don't see that.
It seems to be that once we have the appraisal,
Thanks for asking.
we would add some cost to the appraised price for our expenses.
We could do that.
So the city would get full amount, and the developers would end up paying us.
Makes sense to me, I mean, it would come on the company side.
We effectively huge for that account, it was $10,000.
You should call it a nuisance.
A nuisance.
Well, why should the city pay that?
Agreed.
Yeah, sure. Johnson Brothers?
Johnson Brothers Lumber, if you recall, I think it's another handout for you. We had asked for some clarification on their intentions. We have a pilot on their property on Bouyer Road, and formally requested, some sort of explanation as there's still a pilot. And I think we've gone over this in the past, and John, maybe you weren't in on that meeting, but just to refresh everybody's memory, Johnson Brothers built the Bouyer lumber kiln drying facility to help with their growth of their company, and they were utilizing the waste heat from the landfill gas to energy facility. At a point in time, Waste Management said, we're not getting enough gas out of the landfill, we're shutting it down. We're gonna pay the county, they can keep the building, we're taking our engine, we're taking our ball and going home, which was, again, part of what they were perfectly fine in doing. But Johnson Brothers, who built a kiln up there, have been sitting with no heat source. So they haven't been doing much. They approached the county and said, can we take whatever gas is coming off and just direct fire onto our kilns? And the county said, hold off because we're contemplating what the future of the landfill is. So if you recall, there's been a large question in Madison County about the future of the landfill and who's going to operate it. So it's been, a 3-year process now. And at the request of the chairman or request of this board, I asked for an explanation, and that letter has been issued. And they indicate that, should they have access to heat, they would love to continue to keep it going or to find an alternative user for it.
Wait, I went by Johnson Brothers the other day, and they're having an auction there.
They're
The kids don't want to do it anymore.
We're going out of business.
They're out of business, so,
But they want to sell it.
yeah, including this.
They want to,
John, I've asked that direct question of Mike Johnson.
Right.
His comment was, we are still operating, we're on a skeleton crew, we still have assets, we still have product, we are still in ongoing business.
okay.
That's good.
So when is
Selling it.
Yeah, but we're selling everything.
Yeah, the big auction signs up.
Yeah,
But
so,
if but if there is somebody who is interested in purchasing that landfill, and the landfill remains in Madison County, why would we do that? Why would we not support it? I mean, it's a big facility, and they want, they're just burning off the gas at the moment, right?
They're flaring gas.
Flaring the gas.
They are current on their pilot payments, and I had written it down, and I don't have the numbers in front of me on what the payments are, but based on the previous assessed value of the property, the revenues that are coming into the town, the county, and the school district are fairly significant. But they're not on the tax rolls at the moment. And as the letter describes, the reason that facility isn't being utilized is not their fault as much as there's been a lot going on with the landfill, with waste management, with landfill gas energy facility.
What, is there any force majeure in our agreement with?
I have to look at that, I'm not sure, I would think.
Because if it's not, and it wasn't on anything they could control.
Right.
We lost.
Right.
No, their fault. Right, so then that wouldn't be,
So
breach
which,
of any contract.
No, but I think wouldn't the end result be the same, they just go back on the tax roll? I'm missing it.
no, that would be,
I agree with you that the stuff, they didn't do anything wrong, but the end result would be terminate pilot.
Do they own Do they own the land that their building is on at the landfill?
They do.
We do have a first right of refusal.
Let's ask me to look that up. And I've reminded Mike Johnson that should he be looking for a buyer, that the county has first right of refusal to get that land back. 90 days notice.
Any property owned by the county that surrounding landfill would have that clause.
And I'll applaud this board because I think it was you folks who reminded or advised the county that they ought to include that language.
What's the name of one of the companies?
That's after they build. Before the bill, we have a.
Oh, Bailey's.
They lost it.
Yeah, and another thing too is that I wonder whether or not there's even enough gas coming out there anymore. From what I understand, because the recycling market has dropped out, a lot of that is going into the landfill, and it's created a impervious layer so that the action that's needed to produce that methane can no longer happen because the rain can't get through. I mean, that whole process that they were able to draw methane off is no longer possible anymore because they're throwing all the plastics and glass and everything into the landfill because
choking it.
they're choking it. I mean, that was a healthy landfill, and I'm sure it still is, but maybe Johnson Brothers should know, or at least maybe realize that you might not be able to get the methane.
Well, you will get some, you always get some.
You'll get some.
I mean, you may get enough.
You get enough, right.
They were gonna say I shouldn't separate my waste anymore?
They were getting
Pretty much,
residual heat.
kind of a waste of time, yeah.
They were using the residual heat
From the generation.
From the
generator.
And the generator's not
And
there.
they want
They want to produce their own heat.
They want to produce through,
Yeah, it's probably.
It's all pipes to that
much
point.
less.
Right, yeah, the infrastructure's there.
But they need much less methane.
Yeah, so maybe it would equate out, I don't know.
I think, it's worth following up on it.
The flaring right now, right?
The flare.
Yeah, but it's not, from what I understand, it isn't anywhere near what, the cubic feet of gas coming off there is anywhere near.
Yeah,
what it
that
used
must
to
have
be.
run a 1.5 megawatt.
Yeah,
But-
well, maybe
But
it is.
maybe enough
Several
to heat a kiln.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
yeah.
Energy.
Follow up on them, I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah, well, we don't have to do anything right now, right? This is just for our information, to make a determination on whether or not we should take any action on the pilot. Right now, we're just gonna wait based on his letter. Just take it.
Are they asking us to do anything?
Well, no, we're the ones that.
We instigated this and say, hey, what are your intentions?
Yes.
And they wrote back a formal letter of their intentions.
I think that's.
That answers the question.
No action at the moment.
So, do you go to attendance hours meetings?
I did for a good 7 or 8 years straight. I have not in probably a couple of years.
So we know where they are. More discussions.
Do you have time to, find out where things are going there?
With the landfill?
Well, with the R part.
The R part is
Fair, Kim.
development, and the development of the energy resource.
I can tell you that I've gone back to Mark Simone on several occasions to say, Mark, should I or shouldn't I be marketing land at the Ag and Renewable Energy Business Park? And his response has been, we need you to hold off on those efforts while the county continues their analysis of the future ownership or operation of the land.
So, it's very simple. All they gotta do is find a way to fund the recycling program. The landfill will take care of itself. 0.25% sales tax.
Russ mentioned it, I passed that word along, and the response was, we're not increasing sales taxes.
Talked to Mark about it. He said the state.
I don't think they got the spending for it, I don't think they would. I don't think
People
they
do
got
have
the
to pay,
political
you have
will
to
to do
pay
it.
for that. Somebody's gotta pay for that recycling.
I agree.
It would have
If you do
changed.
sales tax, the
Would've
people from
changed.
outside the area help contribute to that.
I know.
Because they're drinking sodas and.
Yeah, I know. You know what it costs to have private hauling service now? It's pretty expensive. So, if you have your garbage taken away.
I agree. Whatever you do, you don't want to give up 100 years landfill like 25. I mean, that is just.
There are needed to be responses.
I see Jim Zek on a regular basis, and believe me, he did this bugging the heck out of him.
He came back and spoke publicly on a few occasions at supervisors meetings.
Oh, there is a committee, right? I mean, a public committee, I'm not sure who's on it.
There's a county committee, solid waste.
Yeah,
Jim
there's a-
Cunningham still on it? Now he's
chair of the board.
Chair of the board.
Oh, I know Dick Williams asked to be on the public committee.
Which was a result of,
There were some, they had an application process, he said they never heard back, so I don't know if he is or not. Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's in the, he knows all about it, he's there. So, I don't know where they are, but.
I don't know where they are either, but you're absolutely right. There is a group of concerned citizens and others that are helping to guide the county in. Which is good.
So, resolutions, Albany Street, hear that?
All season is tabled.
Okay, other business?
I was going to ask Chris if he had updates from Albany, but I might just, if.
The only thing, yeah, is there was a bill that passed both sides of the legislature saying that IDAs would have to have a member of the school district and a member of labor.
I mean, on their board.
Who come on board, yes. And that was not signed by the president.
Hasn't been delivered to her desk yet.
So I think she signed that. I mean, a lot of my ideas have members of labor on there already. The school district one is kind of an interesting wrinkle.
Which school?
But what's that?
What school district?
Our school district.
Something within.
Which is part of
That's
the.
actually an interesting question.
Part of
There you go.
In the county idea, it doesn't have to, the school district doesn't have to decide.
So you're saying like an elected board, elected official, elected school board member?
Yeah.
Or school superintendent?
A representative of a school district,
Yes.
but, and again,
Not the president of the SUNY.
Yeah.
a lot of the arguments that we threw out against this, were along the lines of, we represent a lot of school districts. And a lot of us are limited on the number of board members. So if you want to add 2 members, who do we get rid of? And, what, so
So the way it's set up, you have to wait for someone's term to expire. You couldn't say, President Rogers, you're out.
Also, we only have so many
We
shares.
don't have any.
We don't have terms, so many,
Oh, nothing wrong with that.
and only so many donuts.
That's why, speaking of which.
we worked with the State Association, the New York State Economic Development Council, and asked NICOM to weigh in on this. The chair of the New York State Committee on Mayors, Ruth Ann Lovelace, wrote or helped to craft a letter. There has been a lot of opposition. I talked with our State Association's executive director. He sent me an article that I haven't been able to open, but it was from our finance committee meeting this morning. There seems to be a lot of opposition in cover if the governor does want to veto it.
I don't think it's passed.
You don't think so, huh?
In my opinion, but.
So we all serve just at the pleasure of the Madison County Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, it's not, it's, right.
Not that we
So
don't.
that doesn't have the mechanics.
That's Ruth Ann, okay, so we
What
can
about
quick
the-
to take
That's a
action.
great lady.
We appreciate that work.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll make a difference, but
So that's the hot topic.
That's the-
idea one.
My term's been 18 years.
Who's the big anti-IDA guy? Schoolfist.
Schoolfist, yes.
Yeah, he,
Yeah.
that like, you're talking to him before. He's not like
Yeah.
IDA.
I did, but I think I took
That's his-
2 years or something. I think
That was a big-
Did you? I don't
Or
remember.
did I?
I've been here longer than you.
Maybe not.
Yes, you have.
Yes, that's right.
Everybody was cleared off for a short period of time.
Horribly hard.
The last thing I might bring up under other business, and again, something just to chew on, that we have talked about or have chewed on in the past, the possibility of the IDA increasing our fee, or maybe even our application fee. At this point, our application fee just barely covers the cost of filing a legal notice in the newspaper for a public hearing, $250.
Oh, wow. That's.
Most IDAs are closer to 1,000. Historically, our fee, once we do close on a project, had mirrored the mortgage reporting tax. It's 0.75% of the total project costs. We have not changed that. We thought about it on the CRC front. I don't know if we've considered it on the IDA front, but Madison County increased their mortgage reporting tax to 1% years ago, and it hasn't changed. So I just throw that out there that we're on okay financial footing. I'd say good financial footing. But I think we ought to consider it because I don't think there's many IDAs in New York State that are only charging 0.75%.
We see 1% much more frequently, and you're the lowest application fee by far.
I would argue that
And
there are more
ours.
1.5% IDA fees than there are 1% IDA fees. If we were to look statewide, and I haven't done a hard look, but from time to time I look at what my peers are doing. So.
With the
So what would
CRC,
our process be to bump it up? I mean, do we just build that into our budget for the next fiscal year? Or?
We don't actually budget for revenues coming in like that, but I think it would be simply a decision of the board to increase it, and we would adjust our applications. And when I'm
Yeah.
communicating that this is what our benefits are, this is also our cost, and not only our cost, also our legal fees, and your own legal fees.
You need to amend your policy, your fee policy.
Yeah.
You do that by resolution easily.
Okay.
so,
The governance committee will be meeting soon enough to review policies
Yeah.
before the end of the year.
So
Or
one of
around the end of the year.
our big sources has been university funding. And you never know why they choose us rather than somebody else. I mean, so
Well-
if raising the fee makes a difference to them.
There are a couple of reasons. We've got great legal counsel that
all I mean
is
is
accessible.
be sure to take that into consideration.
With our bond issuance chart on the CRC front, I mean, there's
Compared to what they
lucrative
have to pay
reasons to
on
deal with
the
us.
CRC is people who don't dormitory.
Right.
Yes,
But yeah,
But the
it's not easy to work.
yes.
Annual fees.
Yeah.
And not very fast.
Correct, very rigid.
Right.
So all I'm saying is, since we've had so many large issues with Colgate and Casanova College, just take that into consideration.
And Colgate has expressed that dealing with Hodgson Russ and dealing with a dedicated team where they pick up a phone and get answers,
Yeah.
that has been truly,
Useful.
We aim to please.
and we've done a lot of business with Colgate.
Oh, they're fantastic.
So you're thinking about what?
I just
Fees for both the IDA and the CRC?
I just think it would probably be healthy to consider it, or,
You could always even change the policy, you could have a weekend exception to your policy for the university, we do a lot of business.
Yeah, I put something together, make a proposal, I think, and come up with an idea, right? Unless,
I just thought the timing might be right to at least introduce the topic and say we can talk about it further in the future, think about it.
I was just, why? Because we're not in the money-making business.
No.
Although we want to be financially stable, well into the future.
the application fee should cover our costs.
Right, so the application fee, I could certainly support increasing that. But put something together, we'll have the
For both,
pros and
and I
cons,
think
yeah.
it's worth money, but.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to add, as far as other business.
We have an executive session?
I would like to discuss something with you folks, but, it's up to you. You would need to call executive session.
Okay.
Motion a second.
Motion for an executive session.
Or advice of counsel?
Council,
Do we-
vice council?
Do we have to come back into the regular meeting?
We will do adjourn. Oh,
After the executive session, yes.
Just to adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion. If you need motion.
Motion.
To executive session.
I got it.
Second, all those in favor, say aye.
Yeah, we were talking.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's supportive.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was
just,
on top of this one.
You were, but you're on board, so.
That's right.
I'll just note for the camera, YouTube, anybody that's watching us or paying attention, we did come out of executive session at 5:12 PM. Motion by Russ, second by Liz, to adjourn executive session.
No action was taken.
No actions were taken in executive session. Thank you.
If there's no further business, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by John Salter, second by Lee Rogers. Further discussion? Not all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Everyone, thank you for your patience. Chris, thank you very much.
Very much.
Good job.
We came out of executive session, no actions were taken, we adjourned. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
As always.
Great time, too.
Good discussion today.
Thank you. Yeah. And for me, it's just. It's my
Oh, hold on, let me, since we're adjourned.
I didn't get to read all this, so I'm gonna bring this part.